Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with my good friend and the medium. I was going to get it right and I got it wrong. The military medium, Dean McMurray.
I love it.
This is kind of a good summary for the way my day's going. So I'm glad we're doing your daily dose of happy. We're so glad you decided to join us today because, quite honestly, this is one of those days where I need a little bit of a lift.
It's all right.
Oh my goodness!
How you doing today, Walt?
I'm doing fine.
You doing all right?
I'm doing fine. I've been dealing with stuff, and it's been one of those days where it's challenging. You know, you have to sometimes just face up to the fact that you're riding the roller coaster. It just happens. You know, some days just go like that. But I'm trying my best to keep my vibe up and laugh at it where possible and smile where possible. And where not possible, I take 5 minutes off. Instead, what else you gonna do?
There you go. I love the fact that that's raw and real. It's. Life isn't always, I think we talked about this before. It's not always puppy dogs and unicorns and.
No, really.
Sometimes it's, you got your bumps and dips and twists and you get tripped up and you just keep on going, right? Skin, knees and all. And you just get up and keep on going. That's,
and don't worry about it.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
That was one of the most flubbed intros of all time. I don't care. It's all right.
Like, hey, we're so good with it. We're still here. We got a good laugh out of it.
Got a laugh out of it. That's right.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a reason I think why I was on that because, whenever I'm starting the show, I'm also going through my mind, okay, what are we going to be doing first? And, what's the flow going to be and so forth. And I have a note on my little notepad. I have a little pad here on the side that I look at to give me an idea what's coming up next. I have a little note to ask you a question because you pointed out to me, I guess sometime last week, that recently I had referred to you as the military psychic, but you're actually the military medium.
Sure.
And so I made a note to ask you, okay, let's talk about the difference. What is the difference in your mind between a medium and a psychic?
Oh, yeah. Well, we can talk about that. Well, and this always brings up some interesting conversation because the book answer, is always or has been put out there that, a psychic is somebody to be able to connect to other people and read their energies, past, present, future energies, all that great stuff. And mediums are those that are able to connect with and communicate with those that have crossed over, right? Mm. And the old school, there's a couple school of thoughts. The folks that come from I'll call it the very traditional way of mediumship or the way of upbringing in that aspect, that modality, is that there is no blending of psychic ability in a sense. It's like they don't allow those tools in, if you will. They don't really talk about it. They just deliver the message and very, more, how do I want to say? The very traditional English way of teaching, if you would think of it, right? Just the raw and real message, and not saying that you don't do that in the other aspect. But I guess the way that it works for me is I use both aspects, because I have the ability of, the abilities in the psychic realm, and I'm able to communicate with those who have crossed over. Now, obviously, the term just the military medium, obviously speaking to, kind of what made up pretty much half of my adult life, and then obviously what kind of started as new, and it was just kind of something that was catchy, and it was like, oh, we should go with the military medium, right?
Well, plus also, I mean, since that's your background, that's also where your connections are. So who are your likely clients going to be? Well, they're probably going to be a large number of them from the military. I mean,
and I got to really share, when I first started, it wasn't in the military.
Really?
The clientele wasn't primarily in the military because I kept that hidden from my military quote unquote family or people that knew me in the military community. They didn't know that I did that because I didn't want to be known as that guy.
Yeah, sure.
Like, oh, McMurray's gone off his rocker. I didn't, I was scared of what other people, I was worried about what other people were going to think of me. And, you know, when I got closer to retirement, that's when I kind of came out the proverbial closet. I didn't care and just said, you know what, I'm retiring. I don't care what you think of me. I don't care what you might do. And really, you know, and like I share when I talk about my backstory is, you know, people are people. Doesn't matter if you're in the military or not. You know, some people are going to be believers. Some people are going to be supporters. Some people are going to, I'll pray for you. You know,
yeah, that's right.
Some people will just turn around and walk away because they are non-believers. And wherever they are, wherever somebody is currently, that's okay. And, you know, and I really made that realization way back then and go, you know, here I was thinking it was a completely different mental, you know, where they were mentally as far as you're military, you must be in this box. Well, no, that's just an occupation. That doesn't define an individual.
True.
So, but going back to the psychic medium piece and I really kind of caution people like, oh, you know, if somebody uses, going back to what you shared, Walt, is like, you know, if somebody was like, oh, you're just, if I did own the label, say military psychic, oh, you're not a medium, Dean. You know, it's like, hey, here's the deal. I have met a lot of people that just use the label psychic or intuitive or whatever you want to use. And they do a hell of a lot of accurate channeling of spirit messages. So that's mediumship, folks.
Sure.
You know, sharing the message of a deceased loved one and bringing through evidential information that describes somebody in detail and something that they wouldn't know, you know, by any other means. And so, you know, so when it comes down to labels, it can really put people in a box. But unfortunately, when it comes down to business, because at the end of the day, yes, it is about healing and it's about spreading awareness and all that great stuff. But there's an aspect of business there. And when you start looking at marketing and that aspect, it's like, what would be catchy? What
Sure.
accurately describes what I'm doing? And when I first started doing mediumship, it was, psychic medium, Dean McMurray. And I put, I think I had a business card one time that said spiritual medium. Another one that said mental medium. Because I was trying to define who I was as a medium. And there was a lot of book answers because, you know, the mental medium, according to some texts, says everything's in your mind's eye, right? Everything that you see, sense, communicate with. So it's all in your mind, right? Instead of outside of yourself. And so I was like, well, that makes up like 90, maybe 98% of what I do. So I was like, well, maybe I'm a mental medium. And then I read something else that it was like, well, spiritual mediums means that they believe in something bigger than themselves, a entity that they consider God or what, you know, more, I didn't really want to say religious, but, you know, and something on that aspect. And I was like, well, God, now I'm a spiritual medium. It was like all over. I felt like the little dog with the ball. Here you go. Here you go. Yeah. And I was like, why do I have to define myself as far as, you know, and so I was like, you know, when I stepped away from feeling that I needed to own a XYZ label, it wasn't about anybody else. It was all about Dean, in this manner and really how I was trying to identify with self. And I was like really trying to figure out who the hell Dean McMurray was as a medium. Like, where was I? And it's like, dude, you're just a medium. It's like, why do you got to go crazy? Don't keep it simple, stupid, right? And the KISS principle, like we learned in the military. And it's like you just put yourself out there as a medium and then continually work with clients, whether they're military, you know, maybe family members in military or just anybody that's in need. And you just trust that the universe will provide them And you'll provide services to those in need. And when I let go of the need of a label, and I was just like, psychic medium works because that identifies what I do. And then also if they need to know, then you can say, yeah, dowser, an ordained minister, whatever, right? But a lot of times, a lot of people put things in a box, and it's like, where do you fall?
Well, that's why I was laughing, actually, because, I laughed when you first made that distinction, not because I was laughing at you, right, but because I was laughing at the fact that, if you have like an osteopath and a chiropractor, they both basically work on the same thing. They work on the skeletal system, know?
Yep.
But they, the osteopath can get his nose out of joint and probably have to fix it, because the chiropractor is lower on the scale. It's just, it's crazy.
The one thing, I guess, and not that, is I'm always, obviously, my mission has always been from day one is to help others heal at a bigger level, right? And so what I've come to realize as a healer, as somebody that is bringing light or awareness to others at a deeper level, is I realized, and I had to get beyond the fact that I had to become very public with what I was doing instead of being the inside backroom channeler of messages from dead people, and I had to get to a level. I'm not saying that I had to be okay with it, but to kind of get over myself about when I would hear people say about putting what I did in an entertainment niche. Because a lot of people, when you start getting in commercialized, and at a bigger level, people look at it as a entertainment aspect and saying, well, I understand it does so much more, but when they look at it as a show or something that entertains, or it speaks to an interest of, right? Think of,
they're probably also looking at the fact that putting it in the entertainment category makes it legally safer.
It does.
It's harder to hold you accountable like you'd hold a medical doctor, for instance.
And the same thing is, unfortunately, I understand that I've been blessed to be able to help a lot of people, but, and I'm very humbled to do so. But I also realize that we got to have the caveat, and just like on my website by bookings, I have the little disclaimer, if you ever look out there, is in small verbiage saying this is not meant, readings are not meant to diagnose or anything. But a lot of times that stuff comes through, and we know that there's a lot of people that channel. But you always want to back that up and saying, okay, if you feel that there's something going on medically, see your doctor, see your mechanic, and saying, does Dean hold a degree in medicine? No, I don't. Am I a licensed therapist? Nope. Am I a certified mechanic? Nope. Went to Army mechanic school. That was it. But, here's the thing is that, unfortunately in the modern, 3D world, right? There's almost like that liability caveat, and just saying, okay, understand that there's an aspect here and do your due diligence. But at the same time because I think a lot of times too, people, take that information and they blindly apply it to their life, and which is encouraging because they're wanting to change their life. But at the same time with that is I really encourage people, if you have any information by anybody that gets any divine, not every piece of information, you got to look at your own timeline, and take what you're given and kind of go, they said that, maybe it's investing or maybe it's health and saying, well, what's going on in my life right now? And, is it something that's fitting the timeline right now? Maybe it's something that happened in the past. Maybe it's, talking about legality stuff and that kind of stuff.
It reminds me of something too. It reminds me of what our friend Rita Giganti, who's currently on a sabbatical, but she has done psychic readings on Fridays, likes to point out. And that is, when she's trying to explain this liability thing, she's saying, not only am I not a medical doctor, all I'm really doing is reading, in a sense, the energy that's going on right now.
Yes.
Which doesn't have anything to do necessarily with the energy that's going on 5 minutes from now, or a year from now, or 3 years from now. It's the energy that's going on right now. So you have to understand it within the context of what it is that we're doing.
Right. Well, and that makes, and that's a great reminder too, Walt, is saying, and I think we brought this up about when it comes to reading the energy of things. For example, when it comes to health, right? Say somebody has poor eating habits and has, their health is not very good. And maybe their energy is just holding that and saying, okay, here's the deal. You really need to make some big changes because your energy is telling me that if you don't, you're going to end up with health concerns. Well, that individual could, or because of free will, could, make the decision to change or not, saying, you know what, I'm the hell with you. I'm going to continue, doing what I want. Right. So, absolutely. They, through free will or anything else, but absolutely, we know that energy is always in a constant state of motion, based upon what somebody does or doesn't do. And, so I think that's important to remember as well. So, but anyways, we kind of got off on a tangent, but yeah, it kind of speaks to liabilities and everything else. But, certainly when I went back to looking at, funny about the military medium piece, Walt, was going back when I first started, right? And I was kind of getting out there and in the public when I came out of the closet, as it were. And my wife goes, "Oh my God, you should be the military medium." And I was like, "Are you serious?" And
that went over real well the first time.
Right. And I really thought at the time, because that was where I was coming from.
Yeah.
I thought, quite honestly, and I wasn't being mean, I quite honestly thought it sounded so cheesy and stupid. Mm-hmm. I really did, because that's where I was.
Sure.
And I was like, no, that doesn't sound right. And I was like, and so basically, I just kind of ignored her, but she was like, well, whatever. But intuitively, my wife's so, just so connected as well. And she knew that, back then I should have, but I wasn't in the space. And I shared earlier, like I was trying to identify who I was.
Sure.
And I think for a lot of people, like when they're identifying, are they a psychic? Are they a medium? Are they a healer? Are they, what am I? Like, and some people don't even know what services. I have a friend that she's been doing, energy work for, good Lord, 30 some odd years. And she did a session for me one time, and it was part mediumship and, psychic work and healing. It was all kind. And I said, "What did you do?" And she was like, "Oh, I call it my soup now." Like so many years, you get so many modalities or things, it becomes part of your stew, right? And it's like, your grandmother making a soup, like she doesn't even measure anymore. It's like everything out of the cupboard, and because you pick up so many tools along the way, you don't even realize what you're doing anymore. And it's like, it could be some dowsing. It could be some healing. It could be some channeling information from a deceased loved one. It could be divine information or like a channeled healing. It's like, what did you just do? Well, I did a whole lot of stuff, but it's part of the stew. And
plus what happens here is what I think you're really describing is the fact that whenever anything is coming, because we're talking about stuff that's coming to us from what we typically term non-physical. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek because the Stream of David once pointed out to me that they are also physical. It's just they're not physical in the way that we're physical. So actually there's no such thing as non-physical, but that's another topic entirely.
Right.
But we call them the non-physical. And the reason I make reference to that is non-physical, as we understand it, is a realm that pays no attention to the labels that we put. I mean, they try to communicate to us in a way that we can understand it using the labels that we use. But
Right.
the labels don't even apply there. So from their perspective, they're just sending the energetic message. And
Right.
we're the ones who are deciding, well, this is a psychic message. This is a channel. This is medium. This is,
Right.
this is,
Right.
automatic writing. It's like, well, who cares? It's energy.
It's energy.
Give it
right.
a break.
But to conceptualize it, for us to understand it, or a lot of times, like I was saying, a lot of people need to put things in a box for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I
most
think
people do. That's also because of language. I mean,
Right.
that's our primary form of communication, human to human.
right.
And because it's our primary form, we are going to think within the limitations of that framework, because that's how we're communicating.
Right.
So yeah, we put labels on, but that's because that's what we're using. We're using language. If you don't use language, then you can take the labels away. It's easy.
Right. Right. Well, hopefully one day, it was interesting. We're talking about this is, I saw an article today on social media. I didn't read it yet, but talking about, Elon Musk, talking about the Neuralink, right?
Mm-hmm.
And about, starting to, kind of start working with, the human, start experimenting on that aspect, starting next year. And, it's interesting. It's like, really, do we need mechanical man intervention when it's already existing? And saying if we can connect to the free Wi-Fi that's going all around us, and learn how to interpret that, so it's kind of interesting. It brings us into a different paradigm of thinking, right? I
think it brings the race into that new paradigm. I have to admit, I asked the question early on about what's the difference between medium and psychic, but there was also a little piece of me, and this is the broader point that I'm making, a little piece of me that said, do I really care? It doesn't matter.
Right. It doesn't really matter, right?
Because you get to a point where it just doesn't even matter.
It doesn't matter.
So I sit back and I observe the various paradigms that are being created today that people are moving in and out of and so forth. And I say, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Do I really care? Not really.
Right.
It's
just fascinating. It's like,
and
I talk actually, on my mediumship course, when I talk about it with my students, because there's all different, I bring it up because and when people read, it comes up, and a lot of people say, well, you're not a medium. You call yourself a psychic, or you're not a psychic. It's like, oh my God. So I talk about it briefly and saying, okay, here's the deal. And then I ask everybody, hey, what's your thoughts? What's the difference, or is there a difference? And so then I bring up the book answer. Well, this is what the book, or, what's out there. And then the different types of mediums. And then I say, okay, now we talked about that. Great. But here's the deal. They're just labels.
Yeah.
And saying labels can paint you in a corner. And I've met a lot of very talented psychics that don't call themselves mediums that can channel beautiful messages, and vice versa. And some mediums that, probably, are different. And so, everybody, I guess, has their own take or their own view on what it is. And just really, I guess we just bring it up more for awareness and saying, don't paint yourself in a picture. But it really, when it comes down to it, it's really about self. When somebody was to go out and go, oh my God, I want to hire a psychic medium. Usually the first thing, what are they going to do? Go to Google or their web search, psychic medium near me, or whatever city, state.
Right. Yeah.
And so when I think about that, I'm like, they're using a label to search, and they're trying to, find something within that niche, and, not like healer or whatever. And so something very specific. And it's like, and I look back on my younger self and saying, well, if they were to say, maybe look for soldiers in my area, would I have identified as that way back when? Absolutely. But, I'm so much more than a veteran now, or a soldier, or is it a dad, or,
right.
just a guy, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, labels can at times, we're more than our labels, but labels at times can put us in a corner.
Yeah, we put ourselves in a corner. In fact,
I think so. I'm trying to.
I can think of an example. I saw it today. It was on Facebook. It was a young woman posting in one of the law of attraction groups. I don't remember which one. Probably the baby elephant group. That's where the more interesting ones come from. But she posted this question. She says, "Okay, I don't want to go inside to get the answer to this question. What I want to do is ask, is there a spiritual process?" Now, as soon as she said that, I said, wait a minute. What do you think spiritual is?
Right.
She said,
I don't want to go inside. I just want it easy.
But is there a spiritual process that I can use to detect why, or to detect that this person in my life is not telling me the truth?
Oh.
And I thought about it for a second. And I said, well, don't you realize that by posing the question this way, you have already determined that the person is not telling you the truth?
Right.
We get all wrapped up in
right.
Okay, we're going to get the labels just right so I can ask this very, very pointed question that is framed in this very, very tight way, not realizing that logically we just locked ourselves into a corner.
I think the more important or the more interesting question, I would have loved to come back and have a conversation. Why don't you want to go within? Why don't
you? Right.
What's keeping you from looking inside? And, and sometimes I get it. People just want the easy answer. They don't want to put in the work. But, interesting that somebody would be in that group talking
about. Well, there's a pattern that I've seen.
Yeah.
People who frame it in a way where they're saying, I don't want the intuitive answer. I don't want this. I don't want that.
They want to hear something specific. They
want to hear something specific, but there's always, I'll call it an agenda. That sounds nastier than it is.
Right? No,
but there's always an agenda that goes with it. And the agenda is, I'm angry about something, or I'm afraid of something, or I am depressed about something, or I'm frustrated about something. But I don't want to go to the fact that I'm angry or frustrated or depressed, or I don't want to actually go there. I just want to solve it.
Yeah.
Like, what? What are you
doing? Or
the
other aspect of, I've been told 50 times prior to this answer, but I don't like it. So I'm going to ask over and over again until I get the answer that I want.
There was a cartoon like that I shared on the show, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, a picture of a card reader. And you're sitting from behind the card reader. So you're looking at the table from the reader's perspective. You see the client on the other side, and there's a layout on the table of cards, probably tarot cards, right?
Right.
And the client looks up and says, do you think we could do that one again? Maybe reshuffle this time?
Right. It brings up an interesting point. I've actually had some people come through and I was, kind of, intuitively picking up on maybe an undercurrent of that. And sometimes I think it's more spirit, generated, but kind of where I just kind of stop and go, what are you looking for? Because obviously I think you're just paying people to say what you want to hear, and that's not going to happen. So, I'm going to try to save you some money here. What are you looking for? And saying, because you're probably going to continue here. How many times do you want to hear the same answer?
Yes, right.
And how many times are you going to pay or go to, because I have a lot of great friends, God bless them, that they're addicted to readings. And I'm like, okay, that's cool that they love readings and whatever.
Sure.
But I'm like, what are you looking for? Like, you're looking for a specific answer. That tells me that you're not happy with what you're hearing and you're getting over it because, they share, oh my God, I went to these 4 readers and they kept on saying the same thing. And it's like, well, did you take any action? And it's like, it wasn't what I wanted to hear. And I'm like, right. Oh, Lord, I gotta go now. It's like, but it's interesting, isn't it? It's more, and I think it's, I think you touched on something, or or Walt, is why did I call you Art? See, I don't even know why I'm.
Well, it's fair because I called you the military psychic. So
there you go. Now I'm calling you Art.
Yeah, so that's what this is.
But I think what's interesting about that is a shift, and I don't know if because the energy for some is getting a bit denser and they have to do more work to go in the direction maybe that they're wanting. Because sometimes it's not easy.
Well, I think one of the factors that comes into play here is what are often called comfort zones. So although after having lots of conversations about that term, I've decided I don't really like it. I like to call it a familiar zone because comfort zones, so-called, are rarely comfortable. But familiar zones are always familiar. So that's why I like that term better. But I think that's part of what we're dealing with here in this topic that we're addressing. People are in a familiar zone. They like that familiar zone. Yeah. There's something about it that pays off for them. And so when they're getting information, even if it's just energetic information, that goes against what that familiar zone tells them should be happening, they don't like that very much.
Right.
They want to stay in that familiar zone. I mean,
it's not comfy. It's not.
You talked about therapists. My wife used to be a therapist. She was a therapist for about 10 years. And she was actually a therapist that the marriage and family therapy companies really didn't want to have on their books because she would keep the client on the book for as short of a period of time as possible. They want, of course, keep spreading it out so they keep money coming into the facility. Yeah, but she didn't. Her principle that she would use with her clients was grow or leave. This isn't Gestalt therapy where I sit back and you just say whatever comes out of your mouth every single time for the next 5 years, because you don't grow that way. You want, if you're here to actually get better at something or to improve in some way, I'm your woman. I'll be glad to help you through it. But if we're just here to just kick the can around, I got better things to do with my time. And I mean, as a result, her clients grew or they left. It was one or the other.
Right.
Grow or go. Very, very simple. And I think the same rule applies with people who are, doing the things we're describing here. They don't really want to grow. They don't really want to have to take the action. They don't really, they just want the answer that says, yeah, but I want it the way I want it.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that what law of attraction is? I should be able to want it, and it should be able to come the way I want it.
Yeah. I wish, I think there's a partial truth to that. And I've said this in the past, a want without any action is just a wish. And so, it's just, and can wishes actually manifest things? Yep, to a degree.
Sure.
I've seen it happen, but it's not, you won't get the results to the level that you want. And so, if somebody doesn't take the steps to, reach their goal with the universe's help, certainly it can be, much more challenging. And I don't think they'll really reach the pinnacle that they're hoping to.
Well, plus there's also another aspect that I think they overlook entirely. People who kind of fall into this category we're describing here. And that is it's almost like they want to be the couch potato attractor, right? All they have to do is sit on the couch and put out the wish and it comes to them. They don't have to do anything about it. It just shows up. I mean, that sounds so cool, doesn't it? That's like it appears out of thin air. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Chips and bear, bring me a bear.
Although usually on a larger scale, but nevertheless, the principle is the same.
I get that.
Yeah. And the one thing that they overlook in that is, do they really want to be just a couch potato?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously? Is that all you want to do for the rest of your life? You never want to get off the couch. All you want to do is just sit there and have the stuff come to you. Because I'll tell you what, if it were me, now maybe this is going to be different from one person to the next, but for me, that would bore the crap out of me.
Right.
That would kill me now. I'm done. If that's going to be the rest of my life, I don't want any part of it. I want to go live, So if you're going to argue for that, okay. If you want to attract that, have fun. But count me out. I just don't want to be a part of that. That's not fun.
Right. Right.
It's certainly not high vibe from my perspective.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. And that's a great point to make too, is, Walt, is that, yeah, those folks that just want to, kind of sit back, if you will, and not, just kind of be the net, so to speak. Just drag me along behind. I'll pick up whatever.
Yep.
It'll eventually come. And it's like
fish, kelp, rocks, whatever.
I get it. It's not as much work, but it's no fun. And like there's no fun in it. There's no excitement. There's nothing like, so.
And then there's also the other person who will be a variation on this. They'll say, well, I just want to sit there and attract, the big sum of money, because then when I get the big sum of money, I can go do what I want to do.
Right.
And the immediate thought that comes to my mind is, okay, so what was stopping you from doing what you wanted to do before the money came?
Right.
Am I missing something here? I mean, if the thing that you want to do is go sail a yacht, okay, I can kind of get that. You got to have the money for that. But you don't have to have a yacht to sail.
Right.
Why is it? So it has to be a yacht, otherwise it's not sailing. And if it's either all yacht or nothing. Really?
Right. Well, and wouldn't you think if that you're out sailing and doing the thing that you love would actually be attracting that yacht even quicker? In my mind, it would be. Let me put myself in alignment with that which I'm seeking. And by hanging out with those that love to go yachting or sailing or whatever it is, you're starting to attract and be in the same crowds. And hey, maybe I need to go hang out at the country or the yacht club. I don't know. I'm not a boater, but on that level. But
you definitely were not in the Navy, I can tell.
Right? Yeah, left, right, port, starboard. I don't know, but I'll be the guy in the back fishing. But the thing is that why wouldn't you, if it's something that you're looking for, why wouldn't you put yourself in that environment? You're immersing yourself, and then all of a sudden, maybe if it's you talk about owning your own sailboat or yacht, saying, maybe it's, hey, I know somebody selling a sailboat for what, maybe it's a sailboat you've been dreaming of. So you never know. It's, but again, you bring up the good point, Walt, is that, that's not going to happen, if you're dreaming about a yacht and you're sitting on your couch.
Well, it could happen.
It could. I'm not saying it
couldn't,
but
it's possible to attract that. I'm suggesting it's not all that much fun. I mean, it's kind of like the story that Abraham Hicks tells about how Jerry and Esther Hicks were on vacation in Colorado, someplace out west. I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was a place where they had a river with rapids, and they wanted to ride the rapids. Okay, sure. And so they went to the location, and the guy who runs the tour, the guided tour, takes them down the river and so forth, is explaining to them how, they can't make the river stop moving, so you have to take basic safety precautions, listen to what we're talking about and so forth. And then they do a hypothetical. Esther does a hypothetical as she's taking in Abraham's messages and says, well, what if Esther had said, I really don't want to have to go through all that riding the rapid stuff. You get wet. It gets all over the place. I mean, you can get thrown out of the boat. There's all this risk that's involved. Can't we just start at the top of the river, put out all the gear into the Jeep, drive it down to the bottom of the river, then paddle out to the last 200 yards and ride the last 200 yards down? And the guy says, well, yeah, sure, we could do that, but I thought you wanted to ride the rapids.
Right.
What exactly are you trying to accomplish here?
Yeah.
So if you wanted to have the yacht from the couch, what were you planning to do with it? Were you going to just say, I got the yacht. Okay, I'm done with it. Yeah. What's the point? What are you trying to do?
Right.
Because if you're not trying to do anything with it, I don't see where the point is. What are you trying to accomplish here?
Right. Yep. No, absolutely. That makes
it's so abstract that it doesn't even make any sense anymore.
That makes a lot of sense, right?
It makes sense that it doesn't make sense. Yes.
Well, when you think about it, it's like, and it kind of, just enjoying the ride wherever you are too. So
if you do get the yacht, or you do want the yacht so you can go yachting, that means you want to go out on the water. Okay. Well, until the yacht shows up, what are you going to do? Hang out on the couch? Why not go out on the water for a bit? Yeah, you don't have the yacht yet. You'll start with the rowboat, work your way up, attract the motorboat, and then, attract the I don't know what would come next, but whatever comes next.
Right.
The trawler. I don't know.
But by doing that too, when you think about it though, Walt, it has a lot of logic in it too, because maybe by doing that, do you get to know, like, I don't know, the harbor master, or do you get to know the people that are involved, maybe with the slip, or maybe you do some work for somebody down on the docks or something where you get
maybe you actually learn how to actually drive the thing without
right.
crashing it, because
maybe
you start small and work your way up on that,
there was a mentor.
I mean, how embarrassing would that be, right? You get the yacht for the first time and you get out there and you crash into the harbor because you've never driven a boat before on the water.
I got it, right. I had a mentor many years ago, named David Woods, and he talked about wanting to go when he was younger. Didn't have a lot of money, but he was bound and determined to kind of go around the world and work his way around the world. And one of the things is, I believe it was, he was going from one country to another, and he went down to the docks and found a boat that was going to, I don't know if it was Spain or where it was, but basically he lied to get, do you have experience? Yeah. And this was, of course, so many years ago when, you didn't really had to show any credentials or anything. And basically he was one of those guys who could just pick it up really quick, right? And but talking about where he just said yes first and then learned on the fly, so to speak. But he knew, and that was kind of the premise of the story too, of saying that, to travel, he really didn't have a whole lot of money to his name, and he worked his way, because he knew that it was like, well, I could sit at home or wherever and say, well, I want to travel, or I could actually get out and take steps to do that. And, and he would get to a country, and he lived abroad for a number of years, but he would live in a country for however long and work his way around, do odd jobs, whatever. But it was really kind of fascinating. So when you talk about that is, if you start, like you talk about this yacht analogy or the sailing ship, and saying, before you have it, the boat or the car or the lifestyle that you're wanting, why can't you already start aligning yourself with what you want to do? Immerse yourself in, go down there and get on the water, or, in that rowboat, or, maybe you can't even afford the dang boat, maybe you're out there swimming. I don't know, whatever it is. And then work your way up to that. There's a lot of people that, talking about boats, there's a lot of people that, commercial fishermen, right? They start off maybe working the docks and then maybe working on the boats and then saving their money as they go. And next thing you know, they have enough money saved up that they can buy their very own fishing boat. And through the years of successful fishing, maybe they can buy a fleet, and maybe that was their dream. So they do it in stages, but it would have never happened if they didn't start somewhere and, and having that goal. So the same thing, goes is that, you'll never truly get to, and it, like you shared, it can happen, but, if you start aligning yourself the way that you were talking about, it's going to happen so much quicker.
And the reason it happens quicker is because since it's in smaller increments, I mean, Abraham points out there is no difference between attracting a castle and a button. It takes the same amount of attraction power to attract one as the other. But the one difference is us humans. We humans have this idea in our mind that castles are harder than buttons. So that's what the advantage is to starting small. You're building up and basically expanding what Dan Mangena calls your edge of believability. Right. to kind of overcome those limiting beliefs, as we call them, that we put in our own way, that, we want to release it. We want to get out of the way. And that's a great way to do it, is to do it one growth step at a time rather than just going from 0 to 60 all at once. And by the way, this ties in with something that listener Sarah sent in a question about. I want to bring it in here in the last 15 minutes or so. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. Louis D'Souza addressed her first 2 points to a certain degree. I wanted to see if you have any background with any of them. She's looking at healing modalities primarily. Well, not healing, any kind of modality for any kind of purpose, but I think she's specifically using it for healing. The ones she has on her ION are 3 different types. There's sound healing with or without tuning forks. There's craniosacral therapy, and there's access bars. And she was wondering who has any knowledge about that. So I thought I'd bring it up with you to see if you have any knowledge about any of that.
Well, first off, I'm going to say that I'm not a practitioner of any of those modalities, but I'm aware of, and I've had craniosacral therapy. I actually have tuning forks and have used it in not mediumship sessions per se, but other sessions. And, they're all very fascinating. I mean, they all have their own niche, I'll call them. But like you said, it's all energy, right? And it's all how you're fine tuning it. Like how are you playing with it? They're just tools.
Right.
When you're interacting with the energy. And what are you trying to accomplish? The thing that I would share is this. This is Dean's intuitive 2 cents, and just what I've learned is, if you're looking in this instance, like for healing modality or looking to go into something, first off, I think you brought it up, Walt, was talking about, what are you planning on doing with it? Maybe it starts with a personal injury, maybe trying to heal. A lot of times, maybe it's a family loved one that was sick and you want to, feel so, emotionally moved. You want to become a healer and eradicate the disease or, injury, whatever the case. And so first off, identify your why. Why are you doing it? Secondly, I would always say is start with your interest. Is there one maybe for her that kind of gets you fired up more than the others? And start there. Really start reading about it, maybe find some, testimonial, whatever. And if it really speaks to you, if there's something, usually it'll pull to you, be like, oh my God, gives me goosebumps. I just can't get enough of it. And start there, because it won't end there. It'll lead to something else. So maybe it leads to the tuning forks. Maybe it leads to craniosacral. Who knows? It could go in a completely opposite, like, oh my God, I started an access bars and all of a sudden did a dowsing class. And then with those tools, then we talk about the soup, right? It's funny how a caveats into that is maybe you go back to another form, cause there's so many modalities. There's modalities and modalities. Really almost but you could go into something else, another healing modality that maybe wasn't even listed, and that you're just like, oh my God, that completely fascinates me. There's, maybe working with somebody's light body, or maybe, something more galactic. Maybe it's, so there's so many fascinating subjects, and it's really kind of interesting to listen to them. But I guess my 2 cents is number one, if you haven't experienced those and you're interested, maybe go get a session and experience it for yourself. So what at least have an idea what it's like. Number 2, read up on it, maybe talk to some practitioners, all that great stuff. But find out why you're going to do it. Why do you want to do it? Just like, that would be cool, or, hey, I saw it on a shirt. I don't, it's like, get clear on your intent, why you're doing it, and then start with your interests. Maybe if it's tuning forks, and I got to share, my quick tuning fork story. Not that I got into healing with it, but, one time, at an expo, actually, I had a booth, and kind of kitty corner for me was a lady at the time that had she had a shop that was more of a metaphysical shop. She had crystals and all that great stuff, but she had a beautiful array of tuning forks. And I've always been, drawn to tuning forks and singing bowls and that whole realm of vibrational stuff. And so I was like, and I was, it was a little slow in the expo, and I went over, and of course, you got to look at what everybody else has.
Sure.
And there was one that I was really drawn to. It was almost like, it was almost speaking to me, so to speak. And it was reasonably priced, that I thought. And I was like, I'm going to get that. And I felt so guided to do that. And I've used it in sessions where it was like clearing energies around people. I've used it for clearing, the energy of space. And really I've used it for myself, like if I had headaches and different things. My kids loved them because of the frequency and everything. So it was just the interest of mine, and it was something that I went on to use. But I felt intuitively guided. It was something that really spoke to me. So I guess what I'm trying to share is, if it's the tuning fork thing, great. If it's cranial sacral, terrific. If it's something else, super. It doesn't have to be one thing, but start.
I love that idea too. I love the idea of following the passion, because that's really what you're describing.
Well, right.
You discover that you have an interest in something. As you look at it some more, it becomes a bigger interest. That's where it starts growing into a passion. That's what was happening when you were realizing you were connected to that tuning fork. And then you just kind of go with it and you learn about it.
Yeah.
And I love that point, because that's what happens here on the podcast. When people, she's referencing the fact, in her message, she referenced the fact that we have people who come on and talk about a lot of things, a lot of modalities like this. In every case, the modalities they're talking about are ones that they're passionate about. That's why they're talking about them. They learned about them, and they say, oh, this was so cool, and it worked for me, and I was able to do this for somebody else. And they get all worked up about it for that reason. That's what makes it so cool. It isn't the modality, it's the passion behind it.
The passion. So cool. That was one of the things when I first started on my spiritual journey. Was one of the addicting things that I found was I called it the energy buzz, because when everything was new and it was so like buzzy, right? Like you could physically feel it, and it was like, ooh, that's so cool. And you would get so excited, and you would want to share it with everybody. Like, oh my God, I saw this and it moved, or it did this. And you were kind of freaked out, but at the same time you were excited, and it's like, oh, you should check this out. And that's that passion that you're sharing. And what's so cool is when you're able to see that in other people, and when you're able to share space with them, and you can just feel the residual energy, because they're enthusiastic. They love what they do. And, and exactly, Walt, is that you hit the nail right on the head, is they share because they love it.
Exactly.
I mean, why would you talk about something that you hate? Oh yeah, if you really want to do that, that sucks. I did it. It just sucks.
That works real well.
A worst experience of my life. Oh my God, right? And it's like, wow, who would go do that?
I would get a lot of listeners on that one. Yeah.
Do not do that. Oh my God. It's like, I'm the best salesman in my. No, it's like, so find something that speaks to you, because I think we've all done things that we've got into that we felt maybe that we were, I don't want to say pressured, but almost felt that we had to, and we weren't really passionate. We knew going in, we weren't really passionate. Maybe it was a college course, maybe it was a class or whatever. And it was just like, wah, wah, because our passion wasn't there. We weren't aligned with it. And if that's why I'm saying, feel it out. It usually speaks to you. So if you get excited about it, do your research, and you might be, I'll share another one with you. I was really fired up and excited. I wanted to learn, like intuitive, medical readings, or medical medium, or whatever you want to call it. And basically it's being able to scan people's bodies and being able to pick up on, medical issues. And I thought that was very fascinating. I was just so fascinated by it. And I was like, so I was putting it out there. I was like, I would love to take a course in this. I would love to learn more about it. And I started researching it, right? And I was just like, wow, this is just so fascinating to me. And so I was like, and I met a literal ton of teachers. Mm-hmm. And I had some great conversations, but none of them spoke to me like, oh my God, I need to work with you, right? And it didn't mean that they were axe murderers, didn't mean that they were creepy. I wasn't in energetic alignment with them. And I understood enough that I was like, oh man, like they had all these certifications and would be great. But I was just like, no, something. And you know what was crazy? I didn't even think about it. I felt so stupid after it happened, but I was sitting at home and all of a sudden like 2 people in spirit showed up. And it was like, go downstairs and you're going to meditate and you're going to channel us. And I was like, yeah, I don't channel. And we're like, no, we're here for your medical the medical intuitive, piece. And I was like, oh shit, you're my teachers. Like they just showed up. Hey, we're here. We're in town. You've been calling for us for over a year. Cause I was really frustrated. I was like, I really want to take this course. And I was like, it's just like, I was like, just nobody was really aligning with what it just wasn't jiving with anybody. And then spirit just showed up and I was like, holy crap. And I was like, and it was like, yeah, go downstairs and we're going to, in your office and we're going to, you're going to feel how we, I guess, feel when you channel us and we'll start this course and here's some things that you need to get. And I was like, whoa, I was completely blown away. And I was like, and then I felt stupid. I was like, well, why couldn't they be in spirit? And I was like, oh, jeez. But here's what I'm sharing.
Well, go ahead, finish your story.
I again, going back to finding what you're passionate about. Whether the teachers feel right or the course or whatever the product, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be a modality either. Allow it to speak to you and, allow it to guide you. It will call out to you. And if you are listening, and be like, and you can feel that energy and it's like, no, yes, right there, that one. And you'll be able to pick it up and the old adage of, I remember asking my dad, before I got married, many years ago, like, Dad, how did you know when, you married Mom and how did you know, who was the right one? He goes, you just know. And I'm like, oh, that's no answer. Like, I was ever very young at the time and he was like, you just know. But I didn't realize like all of you, your senses, your sixth sense, all of you are speaking to you. It's like, dude, that's the one. Like whether it's a mate, whether it's, the modality, whether it's another tool that you're supposed to work with. Maybe you're picking up pendulums, your next vehicle, your next house. If you allow to listen with your body and your, and your mind, the universe will speak to you. It'd be like, dude, it's right there. It's like, oh yeah, it might take a while, but it's like, okay.
That's great advice.
Yeah. And certainly it's true whether, doesn't matter what you're doing, and it was true, by the way, you just, my wife, you just knew it was
but you just know. But you followed it. That's the main thing. You followed it.
You're listening. Are you listening? Yeah.
You paid attention.
We caveated it. We got off subject a little bit, but again, I guess.
That's all right. It finishes the hour beautifully, so you did a good job.
But getting back, just go with your interest and just allow it to speak to you. So.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, thanks for sending that in. I'll continue to ask people, other people this week the same question, but that was good. That was a good contribution. And gotta be real quick here.
Oh, so I was just going to mention real quick is happy Groundhog Day to everybody. I know today's Groundhog. Yeah. So, but don't put all the energy on 6 more weeks of winter. Cause, I think it's, if
I laughed when I saw that. I laughed when I saw that because they pulled Punxsutawney Phil out of his cave on a day with 97% cloud cover and said that he saw his shadow. And I said, really?
But at the same time, and it brings up a good point is, it's not, I think sometimes we put all the eggs in one basket sometimes, be like, oh my God, 6 more weeks of winter, even if there are 6 more weeks of winter, we can find a positive in it. But at the same time is, I think actually it's going to be twofold. I think there's on the West Coast, South and West Coast is going to be, kind of our early, spring. And then kind of in the East Coast, I think we're going to see a little bit of prolonged winter. So kind of with storms, but that's Dean's psychic prediction. Will it happen? Right. Don't know. Maybe they can pull me out of my stump. And if I can't see my shadow, I go back in, sleep for another couple of weeks. I don't know. We'll see.
That sounds like a very appropriate way to draw the episode to a close. So thank you for that. That was good. We'll make sure that we write that one down.
Yeah, right. Pull me out of my stump. Yeah, there we go.
Well, you did the right thing. You helped us get onto that high vibe place today. So thank you very much. I appreciate
Well, thank you. Much. Thank you. It's always a pleasure, Walt, to share space with you. And, I love talking about these things because, it kind of ends and starts my day on a great note.
That's a good thing. So, yeah. All right. Look forward to doing it again next Tuesday. And
yes.
As usual, thank you also to our podcast listeners. Without you, we wouldn't have a podcast. We love talking to you. We love the fact that you're listening. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everyone.